Ni hao, or hello to all of those who weren't with us in the WF China last week, and shishi for choosing your Tuesday night stock picking fisticuffs. This is Share Shootout. I don't know what it's in Chinese, and I'm not sure what Bruce Whitfield is in Chinese either, but we are on CNBC Africa, first in business worldwide. The gloves are off tonight, maybe even glasses too, for tonight's spectacle on the most vicious, scheming, backbiting, conniving, stock picking grudge match on television. Now, if everything is made in China, are we all deemed to be Chinese? Is it fair to say that WEF China had a bit of an Asian persuasion? And is it true that Nicky Newton-King actually did give like a little air punch at the news that Glenn Strata plans to list on the JSE? We're sure she did, but we don't have any real answers to any of those questions. What we do have is a grudge match of epic proportions. Barack Obama may need congressional approval before flexing his military powers on Syria, but our stock pickers need no such due diligence. They're both armed to the teeth and raring to go. The challenger with 6 appearances, 3 wins, 3 controversial and completely unjustified losses. Nick, I'll support all things KZN except Nic Norman-Smith from Lentus Asset Management. He's up against the 3-week champion. He's got 9 appearances, 6 wins and 3 losses, which he thoroughly deserved. Sasha, my vitality age is 12. Naryshkine. The house rules, of course, as you know. Each of you have picked 3 shares. Neither of you knows what the other holds, but each must have picked at least one of their competitor stocks through the course of the game. The longer they leave it, the more likely they are to have to accept something they really don't like. Each has got 30 seconds to argue their stock pick. It is that simple. There was a time where you two gentlemen were here. I asked my producers who should stay and who should go, and they made the wrong call. So what we're doing is we're doing a grudge match. Because it should have been a tie.
Yes.
Controversially, it was disallowed by the judges who speak in my ear.
Won, you know?
No, he didn't deserve to win. But he certainly didn't deserve to lose. So we brought you back for a grudge match. So Nic Norman-Smith, because it is your rematch and you demanded right of reply, in 30 seconds, the airline business. Tell us why you would go short on Comair.
This is an industry that has made a net loss as a whole since the Wright brothers first started flying. The entire industry is structurally flawed because in South Africa you have South African Airways, which has no profit motive. Therefore, you have supply on the market, and it doesn't really care if it makes money or not. So that hits your margins. The price of air tickets over the last 14 years have gone up 14%. Costs have gone up 168%. It's a terrible industry. You've got volatile air prices, and the only reason that this company looks quite cheap, we'll get onto it, is because it's had a great year where 2 competitors have gone belly up, but it's a matter of time before the next one's coming.
Now, this needs to be interrogated because, yes, you talk about the Wright brothers, of course, and it's one of Warren Buffett's greatest quotes ever, that if there'd been a capitalist at Kitty Hawk when the Wright brothers took off, they would have shot down the Wright brothers and we wouldn't ever have flown again, and they would have saved investors billions of dollars and lots of heartache over many years. Comair is the exception. It has never made a full year loss in its 60-year history.
First time for everything, Bruce.
But it hasn't happened yet. It hasn't happened yet. So you're going short on Comair. You must like it. Like the short.
Yeah, I don't intrinsically like the airline business for all of the reasons that Nick said. You know, just to throw a little factoid in here, 80% of the takeoff weight of an Airbus A380, okay, and Nick and I were discussing this last time, is made up of aircraft and fuel.
Yes.
So there is lots of room to maneuver for aircraft manufacturers. And also, this is bizarre because Nick and I were talking about this a couple of weeks ago, that an Airbus seat gets you, what was it, 3 liters per 100 kilometers. So, gee, I don't know. I think I'm going to have to agree with Nick because I don't know any of his other ones here. So I'm going to have to agree with him on this one. The broader industry.
Are you saying Brian Joffe is an idiot?
No, I think he's...
Because Brian Joffe owns 25% of this business.
No, Bidvest. Brian Joffe's trust owns 1% of Bidvest.
Okay, fair enough. But let's take Brian Joffe as a proxy for Bidvest. He is an observer on the board meetings. He goes to the meetings. He is involved. He is very interested in the performance of the business.
I think
his company owns 25% of Comair. Are you saying that he's an idiot?
No. I've said to you twice now.
You're admitting then that you're an idiot because you're going contrary to the great Brian Joffe.
No, well, so what? We both idiots on the show.
Well, it would appear so.
I'm just letting you speak. It's fine. Bruce, the key here is if you look at it, okay, these guys made a 22% return on equity in the last year. Southwest Airlines, arguably the best airline, most well-run airline in the world, has averaged 5% over the last 10 years.
So how sustainable is 22%?
How sustainable? So, you look at it and you go, oh, it's only on 6 or 7 times earnings. Okay, they made 220 odd million rand last year. That's 3 times more than they've ever made, I think, in the last 10, 15 years. So this is a value trap.
But their rivals are not coming into the market. The guys who started one time promised they were going to be flying by now. The guys who were wanting to buy one time, the guys from Kenya promised they'd be in this market by now. They even got a Zoomer on board in order to make it happen. It's a tough industry to break into. They've got a dominant position. They can undercut, undermine, and undersell SAA, which is on turnaround plan number 9.
Yeah, barriers to entry are actually quite low. And yes, just what the human mind tends to do is remember the most recent time. So we've looked in the last year, it looks wonderful. But over history, people will come in, especially if they carry on making money. I promise you more competitors are going to come in. So competitive dynamics.
You're shooting it down.
No, I'm accepting his short term.
You're accepting it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm trying to bully you. One of the best quotes I've ever heard of the airline industry, even better than a Warren Buffett quote, comes from the great Paul Theron, Sasha's colleague at Vestact. And the quote was, a guy will spend 10,000 Rand on a set of Callaway golf clubs, then want to go and use those golf clubs in George, and will spend 3 hours online trying to save $100 on a plane ticket.
Well,
that is the fundamental problem with the airline industry.
No barriers to entry, and there's no price, no barriers to entry. And no switching costs. It's very easy to go. So that gives you no pricing power. Business with no pricing power and volatile input costs is not a business you want to be involved in.
There we go. The short on Comair as accepted. Congratulations, Nic Norman-Smith, on your first one. Devil's advocate aside. Right, Sasha Naryshkine from Vestact. Tell us why, please, Life Healthcare is the place you would like to go if you're going to have a bit of your body removed under anaesthetic. In 30 seconds, please.
Okay, well, look, these intrinsically are great businesses. Out of the 3 that you can choose in the South African market, this is the one that has the least gearing, admittedly the most country exposure to South Africa. But I think that's where you want to be with rising incomes in middle classes. More people are getting access to healthcare, and private healthcare is because the alternative is completely terrible. So I think over the medium to short term, these are fantastic businesses.
Okay, so the private hospital sector, yes, absolutely right. And there was a time where you would have been laughed at for saying, but it's got the biggest exposure to South Africa, and that's a positive, because people were frightened of national health insurance and the impact that would have on private healthcare. And of course, opening hospitals in Switzerland and buying a big hospital group in Britain is genius. Unfortunately, it's proved to be a big drain on the respective companies over a period of time.
Yeah, wonderful. I totally agree. Wonderful business, and they've got, I think, probably the best margins as well. Life is a great business. I think off the top, all 3 of them are too expensive. We were investors in Netcare. We sold out recently. We just think the stock has rallied quite significantly. They're all just, people are looking for safety, and this is obviously, it looks great. It's nice and safe. It's people are going to go to hospital no matter what, and I think that's pushed the valuations just way too high. So if you look at the other 2 in comparison, they've got big debt loads and they bought these businesses, but they've turned them around, and actually you're almost getting the offshore businesses for free. So if I had to buy one of them, I'd probably still buy Netcare. But all 3 of them are just on an absolute level, just too expensive. I can't crack the business at all.
On the price argument, Sasha?
Yeah, I hear his point, but valuation expensive today, and in 18 months, our timeframes for holding equities are multi-year. So you've got to be able to be in the best sector of the market in order to deliver the best returns to your clients over a sustainable 5-7 year period. And healthcare, for me, is one of the 4 core pillars of where you should be invested over the next decade.
But you're not a fan of British American Tobacco, and British American Tobacco is the most fabulous supply chain for these hospitals, isn't it? I mean, it guarantees customer flow.
So is the fast food manufacturers.
Absolutely. All of these guys, you go long on them because they are supplying the patients for the hospitals, and that's positive.
But so, richer people, middle income groups, I think, bodes well. I mean, Discovery had 0 members in 1992.
Yeah.
Well, they got 2.7 million now. Just
in South Africa.
Just in South Africa, yeah.
So you like the businesses. They're essential, but they're too expensive.
Yeah,
You're shooting down
I'd be patient. Like you've seen over the
years.
You'd
be patient.
You could buy Johnson & Johnson cheaply a few years ago.
It's a hospital joke. Sorry.
I'd be patient.
Forgive me. I just need to bring my guests up to their own jokes. Yes, be patient.
Yeah, I just don't think the entry point is attractive enough.
If you guys don't laugh at my jokes fast enough, you both will be patient. Right. So the going along on life healthcare, you're not accepting it, you're not taking it, you're shooting it down. You may live to regret that, however, considering the rubbish he's picked further on. Right. Nic Norman-Smith.
That's an impartial judge here.
Exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely, completely impartial. This is an interesting one because I don't know if I can see the wood for the trees on it. In 30 seconds, York Timbers.
Who says money doesn't grow on trees? This is the largest integrated forestry company in Africa, York Timbers. It's trading at below book value because the industry's been under a bit of pressure along with the construction woes and some oversupply in logs due to fires, etc., etc. But fundamentally, talking about barriers to entry, these trees take 10, 15, 20 years to grow. So that is a mammoth barrier to entry. If we do see a weaker rand, there'll be even more geared to it. So great, boring, simple business, but very attractive valuation and an asset that carries on growing every year.
There we go. The asset keeps on growing. He's full of the puns today.
And you also chop them down every year.
You chop them down every year, but York does its job very well. And having spoken...
What's the age-old one? You mustn't rely on a business that relies on the weather, right?
Yes, but you're hardly relying on the weather. I mean, they can withstand weather and issues. I mean, trees are pretty drought resistant.
Just remind me how their insurance went last time. Just remind me, they were completely uninsured, right? Yeah, so it was a management blunder.
Yes, but they've learned.
Interestingly, they've got a great program with the TAC dogs that go around and patrol the various forests.
Because the forests
are phenomenally successful.
Look, the forests are vulnerable to fans of British American tobacco products because all you've got to be doing is taking a nice walk in the pine forest of a winter's day when the kindling underneath the trees is nice and crisp. You chuck a stompy into that, a breeze comes up, and goodbye forest.
That is a risk, but quite frankly, I'm not concerned about the weather because I mean we talked about long holding periods. There's going to be up and down cycles. So and trees are pretty hardy as well. It's not like some of the other industries. So would you believe it?
Okay, tree hugger, why don't you like the company?
Because I don't think it's a business that attracts one. There's nothing transformative about this business. You can't say, well, because it takes such a long time to be able to produce their product.
It's boring. You plant a sapling, it grows into a tree, you cut it down, and you've got other plants in between.
I also think this is against the backdrop of one of the most emotional arguments in South Africa, and that's land. Everyone's looking at land usage and who has it, and the evil capitalists control it.
They've sorted out a large amount, so there's only a relatively small percentage. So that's not
where the land is contained. But he can say what he likes.
Of course,
he can say you can have the shares for free, and you're still going to shoot them down.
Yes,
absolutely. All right, so you shot down on that, I'm afraid. York Timbers does not get the Naryshkine thumbs up on that particular point. Sasha Naryshkine then from Vestact. You will take something that is manufactured from the byproduct of the timber industry very happily. It is a company which was a dog for an awfully long time.
No, read further there.
And it has really, it's not as much of a dog as your third pick. It was a dog for an awfully long time. It has bounced back and recovered quite nicely and is looking pretty pricey. Tell me why in 30 seconds you might even consider Nampak.
Oh, Nampak. Oh, it's actually Bruce. This is a business the aforementioned very clever Joffe tried to have a go for, but didn't necessarily get the control that he desired. Underpinned by a great yield. The imports part, because the rand is weakened, it's essentially somewhat an anti-rand hedge. Nampak for me is one of those enduring, boring businesses that Nic will probably love. A great yield of around 3.5%, 14 multiple.
Okay, you're talking too much. Nic.
But you interrupted me in the middle.
But that's okay. So, Nic Norman-Smith, Nampak.
Sure, I'm pretty ambivalent. It's not uber cheap, but
I'm
a little bit concerned about what might come next. So I think I might be hedging myself. Yeah, I agree. It's nice.
As ever, we all do.
It's nice and boring, and the demand is going to be there. If we do see a weaker rand, perhaps the imports will be.
But it's got a great Africa demographic story as well. In terms of
I thought you don't buy demographic stories.
It's got a great Africa demographic story. Did I say I buy the Africa demographic story? I did not say I buy the Africa demographic story. But it has got a great Africa demographic story. Everything that has to be sold in any market of the world has to be put in some carton or box of some kind. It's got that is the way in things are distributed. There's got to be a growth market there.
Yeah, I'm always concerned with the whole Africa growth story because I don't really buy the stories and it gets into the valuation and you pay too much for it. But, Nampak doesn't look particularly expensive.
Sasha's learned manners and he put up his hand a moment ago. We've got to give him a turn. Right, Sasha?
Across the globe, over the last 20 years, 1.7 billion people have been introduced to the concept of electricity, something we know and understand well.
We're often unintroduced to our electricity too, yes.
Sometimes. Depends what suburbs you guys live in, yeah. But I think the point that I'm trying to the electrification story globally is going to continue over the next 15 years, but unfortunately to the point where 80% of the people who don't have electricity on the planet are going to be in sub-Saharan Africa. So that's why I think cans and bottles has a pretty bright future in that part.
Nampak, you're going long. Do you like it? Do you hate it?
No, I like it.
You like it enough?
Yeah.
You like it enough. Nampak gets the thumbs up.
Yes.
I think he's going to regret it because your last pick is actually so cunningly clever. He's playing a dirty trick. Here's our Sasha Naryshkine, aided and abetted, of course, by my impartiality. We're going to take a break, but before we do give us your thoughts by using the hashtag SSO on Twitter, like Nzima, who said, Bafana must wait. I can't miss the greatest stock and share show on South African television. Share Shootout with @Bruce Business on CNBC Africa at 8:30. Hashtag SSO. Isn't that nice? But I'm not sure if it's really a compliment. I don't know if it's really a compliment putting Bafana on hold to watch Share Shootout.
Well, half the Kaizer Chiefs side plays for Zimbabwe anyhow, so can't we claim them as our own?
I'm sure we could. We claimed the English cricket team for a while, didn't we?
Exactly.
We could, absolutely right. We'll be back in a minute or two. Decision time coming up as we go into the final round of Share Shootout. Bafana can wait, and so can everything else. We'll be back in a moment.